I had a crazy dream last night. For the longest time, I haven't remembered my dreams.
Mm.
I would wake up and just have no recollection that I had been dreaming. And over the last 6 months ish, I've been remembering a lot more dreams, and I feel like now it's getting more and more consistent. Like almost every night, I remember my dreams now,
Yes.
and I don't know why that is. It could be any number of reasons, but this one in particular was like traumatic. It was like a really upsetting, I guess you call it nightmare. And like, I'm 39 years old. I haven't had a nightmare since I was like 6. It was like such a strange experience. Like I woke up during the night. It's like really, really uncomfortable.
Mm.
And like, it was just a strange, strange feeling. And then I'd go back to sleep and be right back in it. Like I couldn't escape this dream, which makes me think that there's something meaningful in it and important. And I'll tell a little bit about it. I don't want to get too much into details. You never know who's listening. But I had a dream that my brothers and I all together murdered somebody who's like very close to us.
Oh my God.
And it's a really, really strange thing. I have no idea like where it came from. And it was like really upsetting. Like I said, it was a traumatic experience for me to
Mm.
watch this. And then this morning, like I told you, I woke up, I tried to have another dream. I tried to escape it. And then like by the time the morning came, I couldn't wait to get out of bed. And I was journaling about it this morning. Like, what was the reason for this? Like my first thought goes to like empathy.
Mm.
And I think it's really interesting to be in that position where it was like I was witnessing myself doing something that I normally wouldn't do.
So
So
you're saying you normally wouldn't kill
I normally
people
don't involve,
as prehistoric.
right, especially people who are like close to me. I'm not like strangers and prostitutes. But it kind of gave me a little bit of empathy because I can recognize that even in the moment, like I didn't necessarily want to hurt somebody, but it seemed like my only option. And it seemed like I was doing the best thing I could in a situation, which is just an interesting way to think about kind of empathy and think of, there's people all over the world right now doing what we would call terrible things, but every one of them thinks they're doing what they have to do to survive, to be okay. And I think that that's an important lesson. But the more I wrote about it, the more clarity came and the more I started to like tap into this realization that it was so much more powerful than just being empathetic, but realizing it's hard to put words to these realizations and feelings, as you know, but I recognize that the version of me that I was witnessing in the dream was a different version of myself. It wasn't who I've always known to be me. He was acting in a way that I would never act, or like the way that I perceive myself would never do. It was a completely different reality. The scenario didn't make sense. So it was clearly like a parallel reality where my life was completely different. But the consciousness that was witnessing this version of me's life was the same consciousness that I witnessed this life, this reality. And it's, like I said, it's hard to explain this, and I'll keep trying to put words to it, but it's like the feeling that I realized as I thought about this dream was so profound in just recognizing that Dan, this character who I play that I have thought was me for most of my life, is different from the I that is experiencing life through him and kind of witnessing him go through things. Dan, the personality of Dan is going through life and experiencing this reality, and I am witnessing that.
It makes sense to me. I do grasp it, and I hope the listeners will too.
It's really, really profound. I'm like, still, I kind of like shook by it, but in like a really good way. Like not when I woke up, it was like, I can't believe I just witnessed that. And now it's like, wow, I can't believe I just witnessed that. Now I see the separation of like I and me, or like the capital S self versus the lowercase s self. And I'm really excited to explore this
Being
idea.
the observer is becoming more and more in integration practice. So exactly as you're talking about, you're realizing you're the consciousness of the actual I am self with a capital,
Yes.
observing Dan, the small cells, the personality structure, doing almost heinous acts that you couldn't even possibly fathom as doing, like Dan in this timeline, in this reality right now. And it's, when you told me about it this morning, I was like, that's weird, but like no judgment, because our dreams are very revelatory, as all life is itself. And the dream state, dream world, however you like to categorize it, is still profound, and we can tap into access things. We just had released the episode with Mike Martin on there talking about the dream state and lucid dreaming and being able to control it. And I think such a big part of that ties into how we live our lives here in the third dimension. Everything's about experience, and everything is relative to the I that's experiencing it. And the way that that happens is through feeling. We're sentient beings. So my point being, when you said that this morning, I was like, that's weird. But then as you kind of just described it again, I wonder to what degree it was required that your soul, so the part of spirit, which is the I am, your soul is incarnated within you, the small self, as Dan experiencing self now, but also simultaneously experiencing like infinite number of timelines. I think you were able to access the depth of how uncomfortable that is to do something. And for you, because I've known you for 20 years, you haven't been someone who's accessed a lot of feelings and emotions. And I feel like a big part of that happened last year during the retreat in Costa Rica on the psilocybin journey. And now I feel like you're being shown different things to feel in different ways that you didn't have access to before. And being able to identify that as the observer. You're just observing what the smaller self is going through.
Yeah.
And the analytical mind that's trying to process and say, oh my God, that's crazy, I would never do it. That's the small self, that's the ego. It doesn't matter. That's the one that's attaching emotions to something. Emotions are the story that goes along with the feeling.
Yeah. I love the way that you just described that. And it's like, it does bring more to, like, it helps me make sense of it more, and bringing in that aspect of emotions and feelings. And I think that's a really important distinction. First is notice, like, feelings happen no matter what. We're always going to feel things because we have senses. And then when we attach a story or meaning to that feeling, that's our emotion. And that's the energy that needs to be processed so that we can learn from experiences and evolve.
Absolutely. And not stay in the suffering. It's a negative, sad emotion. That's not always want to be.
Yeah. And the other thing that you kind of clarify or pointed out that I just want to like lead into a little bit is that it's the things that we think are good and bad are just stories that our ego is telling us, but the soul on a higher level, or the higher self, conscious, like whatever level above being the ego or physical person, doesn't believe in good and bad. It's all experience. I think that for me, I guess in a lot of ways, I got to experience, like you said, the discomfort of being that version of myself and doing this thing that I don't want to ever do, but I got to get the experience from it, learn something. Because I do believe, as you were saying, like the dreams are a way that our consciousness is able to explore parallel realities
Yeah.
and bring back information and allow us to have these experiences that inform our consciousness without living them in the physical reality here. And I think that as I've been having more and more dreams, it's becoming well more clear to me. And I'm getting like more shifting from believing to knowing that these are all meaningful experiences that are informing my consciousness because I need that wisdom
Mhm.
in this life here. So there's something, maybe the wisdom is tied to learning empathy. Maybe it's tied to learning just how to feel things in general. Maybe it's, I have that experience strictly so I could have this realization that I am not Dan, the personality. I'm the I that is witnessing life through him. And to really have that clarity, because this has, it's been something that I've kind of intellectually grasped but never truly felt. And now I'm really truly feeling it today
Yeah.
and understanding more of the place of the I.
Mm.
Because like the I that I am is the same I that you are.
Yes.
And when any of us ever say I and refer to ourselves as I, it's the same I experiencing life through the personality of another. And it's, that's something that I definitely grasped intellectually for a long time before I really truly felt it. And right now I feel this and it's like, it's really, really powerful and profound.
I'm curious as to how it will still unfold as usually over the next, weeks and stuff, because I feel half the time when I dream very profoundly and I feel like I wake up all the time. I feel like I remember pretty much all of my
Yeah.
dreams, like
I'm kind of jealous for a while.
not deeper than, and yeah, some of them are acting crazy where the feelings of it's just, there's a lot.
Mhm.
I feel like I had something very similar actually, probably like a week ago happened, but I wasn't dreaming. We were in bed and I didn't tell you. But this is just like, I think another and different way that may be helpful for others to become more aware of the I am self being the observer, because as much as we talk about it, I'm just beginning, I feel like, to understand it at a deeper level and have a separation of it. I don't mean that literally because it's all me, but like I'm able to separate the thoughts and the feelings and understand.
Detachment.
Oh, yes. Yeah, maybe that's a better word for it. And observe and see and be on. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it, obviously we're here in LA now and been here about, I don't know, 3 weeks, just about 3 weeks. And there's been a lot that's gone on. Not necessarily in a busy sense, but like getting our stuff ready and getting
Moving.
things done. Yes, it's stressful and I was in such a good place leaving Massachusetts. Like I fully believe I understand and grasp the entire totality of the 2-year journey we were there for. I was just at a very good place compared to when we got there. And now here is the next chapter, the late chapter. We're in this newness of it. However, even though we're back in LA, we're not living obviously in the same place, but we're living somewhere that we're very familiar with. And I was laying in bed and I couldn't fall asleep because my thoughts were running rampant, just freaking out, control nature of like what I needed to do, like cleaning wise, what I needed to do, unpacking, what I needed to buy for this house that we're in. And I'm trying to think of every single scenario, like writing lists in my mind and just all of that inner dialogue is obviously bringing up feelings. It's bringing up anxiety and worry and stress. And what am I doing? Because once I recognize that once those thoughts come, an immediate feeling is tied to it, if not a bigger emotion, because the emotion is the story that's wrapped around it. And that's the part that's tied to the ego, the smaller self. And I'm trying to think of like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna get all these things. And I just quietly kind of for a second asked myself, I really literally asked myself if I was awake. Because we've both been doing that a lot to understand, like, if we are grounded in the present moment, am I awake or am I dreaming? And I typically differentiate the two. If I'm present in the moment, void of any story, being something I'm projecting into a future that hasn't happened yet, or reminiscing about a past that's already informed me that I'm worried about a future, or if I'm making up a story, some made up belief like that, I all know I'm not in the present moment. I'm not awake. I'm daydreaming, and I'm not being informed by the I am capital S self. I'm being informed by the egoic. So I just ask myself, am I awake? No, I am now. Because as soon as I asked that, I was like, okay, dropped into my body. And I was just like a moment of silence and clarity. And I was like, I know it's not me. It's the small me. It's okay. But then the feelings just went away and the emotions just went away. And it was like, oh my gosh, this part of me that I've had for so long that I've identified myself as and worked through as a very, I guess, controlling way, need to, clean and be, productive and have everything organized right away. No one has even been over to the house yet. Like, we have guests coming over this weekend, like, other than the neighbors and stuff. No one's in the house. Who gives a shit if it's dirty or like I don't have all the furniture? But that's what I also realized. It's the small me. The small me cares. And that's how she survived. That's what's protected her. That's how she controlled her situation, because everything else around her felt very uncontrollable and not known. And the fear of that was too much for her to handle. So what was her coping mechanism is to try and figure it out all at once and have everything perfect. So that makes her feel safe. And it was like, so that's it. And then I just had so much love for her. It was like, I get it. Because I tend to also at times be like, chill out. Like, I hear you. I understand, like, calm down. Like, nothing needs to get done right now. But then as I was just allowing her to have her controlling freak out, I was able to observe it and understand that the construct of the personality that I've lived in for this long has served me up until this point. Because up until this point, doesn't feel good any longer. And that's the part of me that I know is ready to be released and let go of. So that's, I hope, another way that people can understand. I was observing myself.
Yeah.
I was awake and hearing those really annoying and controlling stuff, but it was like, okay, yes, I get it now. So it's just the more you become aware, the more you become aware.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Because it's like the more you're able to realize that it's like catching yourself believing that you are the personality.
Yes.
And then when you believe you're the personality, then you're living in the story. But the story isn't the present moment. So your body is literally in one place. Your mind is in another. So you're missing light and repeating a story that is kind of familiar and comfortable as a form of like convincing yourself that you're controlling.
Exactly. I was going to say, this is what we talk about and what you beautifully always say. This is recreating something that you don't want. And that's, again, why I was like really excited that this was happening. And I do feel part of it, the reason why it was happening. And I was tired and I was able to kind of, you're in between. Yes, you're in between. Like, I was very tired. So like, little reason. So I was able to kind of like, I was in between. Like, I wasn't in a theta state of brainwave by any means, but that's it. That's the power. That the driving force is like, okay. And Peter Crone says this: the person trying to change the ego is the ego. And that's what I've done. And so in bed that night, I realized, like, oh my God, I've been trying to change her as the ego, as myself, as this person. And that's why I was like, okay, I'm not trying to change her. All she's doing is showing me how she's survived and how she's taught me to survive. And it's like, that's what I don't want to create anymore because what I was doing, I was reacting. Every thought, there was a reaction to it. Okay, well, I can buy this. I can get this. This is where I'm going to put this beer. This is where I'm going to put the diet. Everything. It was like, that was the reaction because it needed a solution immediately. But the unknown is the present moment. There's nothing there. But that's where infinite possibilities arise. And that's where you can create from as opposed to react, because the reactionary state is what's just going to keep you on that hamster wheel or Groundhog Day. I luckily didn't wake up the next day and feel like I needed to continue unpacking the boxes. It's like, okay, I can just show her that this is all right. And she doesn't need to go anywhere, because those voices for so long, I was trying to get rid of them. That's what I was saying. I was ego trying to fix ego. And that's not, for me, at least, it didn't work for me. It's like, okay, how can I listen to this part of me? How can I observe? How can I feel what she's showing me and not be informed by it? To start recreating something that's no longer serving me and step into the higher aspect of myself, capital S, the I am state, and what I want to create from there moving forward. And I swear to God, that's new. I'm working on it. Literally, I feel like I've been beautifully shown over the past 3 weeks being here in LA. Like I said, even though we're in the same city that we lived in, we're different people. There's different things coming up. Our schedule's completely different. We've got a lot of different projects going on. There's a lot of different ideas in it. I don't know. I don't know how to navigate that. And small Elise is trying to figure it out. And she's shown me that a lot over the past couple of weeks. And I'm so grateful for it, to have this awareness and be able to observe it now and then continue on a different creation path.
Yeah. What I love about that story is that it also gives a really good, like, physical, tangible example, because you were literally in bed. So all these things that you were worried about in the present moment, you weren't going to get out of bed and go empty boxing.
I mean, there was an urge. Let me know bigger. Yeah. I mean, let's get out.
With like you were in bed, you were tired. Most likely you weren't going to get out of bed in the middle of the night and start doing this stuff. So you were keeping yourself from falling asleep. You were tired in bed, keeping yourself from falling asleep, worrying about things that you weren't going to do, which is really interesting. But it's an example, or like an analogy of every moment when we are caught up in a story and we're missing the present moment. Because you said perfectly, like, the present moment contains infinite possibilities. But if our body is in the present moment and our mind is in a past moment or a future moment, then there's only one reality. And that's the one that usually we don't want, but we're repeating anyway, and projecting past experiences we didn't like into the future. So instead of endless possibilities, we just get that same one over and over, where there is this, like a surrender. There's a beautiful surrender in the present moment to giving up the need to control things and trusting that what is happening is what's perfect for your life, because life is always supporting life. So it's like the thing that's happening is exactly what we need. But I said before, the ego labels things to bad. So if it's not something that we expected or had experienced before, then we're going to label it as bad or wrong. Like, oh, this isn't right. It can't be like this. And we take the thing in the moment that's literally perfect for us. We label it as wrong and resist it, and then try to do anything but the thing that's perfect. And that's how we get kind of stuck in these loops where we believe that we have a personality. We believe the personality is supposed to be a certain way and that our life is supposed to be a certain way. We don't see what we expect or what we're familiar with. or even uncomfortably comfortable with, we reject it, even though it's exactly what we asked. We set intentions, and then the world gives us exactly what we need to fulfill those intentions.
Yeah.
And we aren't the world. We aren't the universe. We're an aspect of God. We're a fractal of God, but we're not the whole thing. We don't know what's coming. So we can surrender to what's coming and trust that it's perfect and see where that takes us.
And it's allowing ourselves to practice it.
Yes.
Because as we're asking, right, like exactly as you're saying, when we're on this path and asking to grow and evolve and change, of course, like, gonna be like, okay, great. Yes. I mean, here's what I'm granting you. I'm giving you all of these circumstances that seem to be out of your control, but you're asking for them. You've manifested them in this way to learn and grow from.
Mhm.
But half the time we're missing them. We're thinking that they're wrong or not correct, or we're playing the victim, or like it was saying, like it could have happened any other way than it did in the bed at that time with what was going on. The move, the packing, oh, it was perfect. It's like, oh, I understand. I get it. Like I get it. And something so small and simple as this has been so revelatory in me better understanding myself
Mhm.
and all aspects of myself, like the higher, the smaller, and all in between. I'm like, okay, yes, I get it now. And that I'm, you and I both are trying to intellectually describe this from the
Right.
experiences that we have. And that's all that we can do to help others and help whoever's listening, because it's a felt. It's like, I get it. In the moment, it's like, oh, okay. The knowledge is there. And then it turned into gnosis.
Yeah.
It's the deeper knowledge that was embodied. And it's like, okay, yes, it makes sense. And then you're now able to recognize and pick up on these characteristic traits, these personas that you walk around in. I'm saying you and interchangeably as I walk around and say, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like you said before, as our awareness increases, like we
I just downloaded that. I think
Yeah,
that's like
yeah.
the perfect
like
sentence.
that is the evolution of consciousness. Like things is the simultaneous. And as you go up, you're presented with things, or it's the same, maybe even the same things, but from a new perspective where you realize new possibilities. And then you have more options to take. You have more choices that you're able to make and more directions you can go because you see something from a new angle. So you have a more clear image of what it is. That's just kind of not a good example. I have this notebook. Like if I'm looking at this notebook from here, I would think it was just a rectangle. But then if I look at it from there and I look at it from here, I notice that there's less like depth to it, and this way there's more like it's more from every angle that look at it. Now I know all about it. And then you can start to open the page. Every page has things written on it. So much in here that I didn't know about when I thought it was just this one rectangle, future, off in the distance. But the more angles and perspectives we have, the more awareness we have, the more things we see, the better our understanding is. And then it grows exponentially because now you have more awareness of more things from more perspectives. And that shows you all these new things that you didn't know were there. And it's like perpetual growth and evolution.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of that.
Like, yeah, kind of. Like, I mean, I'm sure I've heard people talk about the same idea, but it's kind of the same idea as the blind man and the elephant. You know, I heard that story where say there's four blind men go out to.
Did Alan Watts talk about this?
I'm sure he does.
Okay.
I think I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot of people say it. But
Okay.
imagine like four blind guys go out and they find an elephant, and they're going back and they're going to describe what they saw. One guy walked up to the leg of the elephant, and he comes back. He's well, it's a lot like a tree trunk, but it feels a little bit different. And then another guy had been touching the ear. And he's like, well, it's like a big, like canvas sheet. It's flat and it's wide as thin. And then another guy touched the tail, and it was just like a rope. And they're all arguing over who's right and who's wrong. And one guy held the trunk. Like, this is a huge snake. And they're all arguing, like, it's a tree trunk, it's a rope, it's a snake, it's a piece of canvas. And they're arguing because they all only have one perspective. But if instead they put all those perspectives together, then they can get a better understanding of, like, okay, this is an elephant. It's got these thick legs and a trunk and a tail and a big floppy ears. And that's awareness. Like, most of us go through life as one blind guy touching the leg of an elephant, convinced he's looking at a tree, convinced he's in the presence of a tree. And we have no idea what it is that we're actually looking at. But as our awareness grows and we get to grasp different perspectives of the same thing, then we, we receive so much more clarity, right? We're like awarded clarity and perception. And that's the evolution of consciousness. That's completely transforms your life.
Yes, I've heard that story before. I feel like I'm sure I've heard Alan talk about it.
I think so.
It's such a good analogy. And the perspective is interesting as your awareness grows, because then we touched upon empathy, kind of like to bring it full circle back into the insane dream that you had. That perspective is one of, like I said, an infinite amount that you could have experienced, and it doesn't make you a bad person for having this dream and feeling what you did. It's now that's brought into the level of consciousness you hold at such a deeper way, because, we talk about consciousness all the time on here, but the best way to kind of describe it is when you can correlate it to feeling. That's consciousness really at the depth of it. And it is the only way that it can grow is to experience. And how you experience is to feel things. You can try to analyze and talk about it all you want. And of course, that is somewhat part of it because we're human and we have a right brain and a left brain. The left brain is more analytical. The right brain is tied to emotions and feelings and intuition, and we need both of them. But the dominant state of a human being is sentience. And what is sentience? It's our senses. That's what ties up to this third dimensional reality that we're living in. So it's funny as we're entering this new kind of era of AI and how much technology has helped us grow, to what degree I wonder where human evolution will go to if we become so much more detached to the sentience of our being and not being able to feel things and letting and pushing that further and further away. Not necessarily I want to get into that, but it's just, I feel like the deeper that I feel, the deeper I know. Oh my God, I just downloaded that too. Like, they're coming. And it's, God.
Well, it's like a mango. If you've never had a mango, I can describe everything about it. I can tell you what family of fruit it is and what color it is and where it grows and all these things. But like, that's all meaningless the moment you bite into a mango.
Yes.
I can't describe the taste of mango. Like, the taste of a mango is incredible. It doesn't do it justice. It's sweet. Like, it's perfect. The texture is perfect. Everything about a mango is incredible. And there's no way to describe that in any way that's not a mango.
Yeah.
It's like gas conscious. It's got to do with eating mango.
It's also like trying to describe stylus by telling
people. Yeah. What?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like this, but less than this.
What's a feeling state? And I truly believe I've tapped into the power of feeling over the past, probably year now. And it has transformed my life in many ways. And I still catch myself trying to analyze as I was doing the story and that. And it's not that I'm not trying to only feel things. Like I said, we are required here to understand and to rationalize and to make sense of things analytically and whatnot. But you talk to anybody about creating a reality, how manifestation actually works. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a feeling that is accompanying what your desire is. And that desire lives within you, which means, of course, can come to fruition. It exists. If you can think about it, it's your imagination. It's there. But when you try to analytically say, well, how's it going to work? Like, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. You're, again, reminding yourself, you bring yourself back into that emotional state of not having something. So you're feeling the same way that you used to, which is just going to perpetuate recreating a past scenario that's going to inform something. So that's why I said, I know that you kept saying, like, it felt so uncomfortable, like, it felt really uncomfortable. It even lingered. Like, that's really profound to have a dream. And that's why I feel like it's so impactful that you were already trying to analyze it. And I feel like that's why I also feel, and you and I have had this conversation over the past couple of weeks where I feel I have stepped so much more into the feminine aspect of myself, where I'm finally being able to understand feelings at a deeper level and being able to show others that, wait a minute, let's talk about what you're feeling hearing this, because that feeling is going to stay with you. And that's going to inform something, because the feelings always turn into emotions that have a story tied to it. And it's like, all right, but you're telling that story, meaning the ego. Right. The sentient of you, the capital S, the I am self, you felt it and it was there, and that's now in your consciousness. Your ego's trying to make sense of, like, what this didn't go. Like, what's happening? It's like, all right, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Utilize it, but make sure that you're still feeling to the depth that you can to integrate it. Because if that's too much in your head, stuck in your ego, trying to figure it out,
you lose the feeling.
Yeah, and I think it will get stuck. You'll lose the feeling. It will be too much of an emotion.
Yeah, and it becomes a story as opposed to like a tangible experience. I want to come back a little bit. That was what we just said, so profound now. Exciting to like sit and think about that. But I want to come back before I forget. So you're talking about manifestation and how everyone like Neville Goddard, the feeling is the secret. Everybody talks about feeling, feel this thing. But this comes back to kind of the idea I was starting with when I was explaining what I realized after the dream is the idea of it. Because it's the I that is manifest, that is creating. And it is creating based on kind of the frequency that it holds. And I think where so many people get caught is that they're trying to manifest from the small self. And I'm not like really just shy. Is what I was striving for, sort of this detachment and being able to pull back so that when you look around and aren't satisfied with your life, or you have an experience and it's not what you're trying to manifest and trying to bring into your reality, and then either getting down on yourself and focusing on that rather than detaching from that and allowing yourself to be kind of pure in the present moment, back to the state that you are actually trying to manifest. Because it's that I am is the one, when you can truly detach from the personality, that's the thing that can manifest and bring about any personality, any reality. Like it's literally infinite. Like you said before, like the present moment of just that still I is infinite. Like the I, you're all the I am. The am is what we are doing. Anything after the am is just a temporary experience. And we have the power to create any temporary experience for ourselves to bring into our consciousness. But if we get hung up on the personality, then we're constantly reminded of the same story over and over and over again. And that's why you constantly hear real like it's not working. I can't manifest. I'm trying to manifest. I'm not manifesting. You're manifesting. You're just manifesting the same thing. over and over and over. It's not once, but when you are able to actually detach from that personality and just be like the true essence of what you are, you're able to create. And I think that that's really, really powerful. It's like that's a powerful takeaway that's different than what you hear from a lot of like manifestation coaches, gurus or whatever, where they're just like, thinking so you make it and just say these affirmations or whatever. And it's like, there's more to it. And the more to it is really recognizing that you're not who you think you are, and who you think you are is probably the biggest obstacle to who you want to be. So it's like being able to really detach and separate, because we all have unlimited power. Or we have so much power and so much potential.